we had like a very random fox issue. So there were like foxes attacking our neighbors when they took out the trash, which is like something so like random that you wouldn't think what happened to you. But we literally woke up one night with like 5 foxes in front of our windows, just like howling, and we were like, oh my gosh. So yeah, for people who don't live in London and don't know that, but there's lots of foxes around who will attack you when you walk around with your trash.
Good morning, good afternoon, and a very good evening. I'm Sam Ellie, and this is Lonely Heroes, the show that shares stories, tips, and tricks to those moving abroad and the as yet undecided. Today on the show, I have the beautiful, goddess-like Johanna.
Yay! I'm very excited to be here.
Yes, finally, episode 6. Why don't you tell me, first of all, where you come from? What's your situation now?
So I'm from Germany. I grew up in like a small town near Dortmund, but I lived in Düsseldorf last time I lived in Germany. And I came to London for love. I met my boyfriend when I came to London for like a weekend with a friend. So just visiting. And then I met him in a pub, which is, I feel like, a very British way to meet. And 5 years later, I'm still in London and I love it.
Whereabouts are you in London?
So I live in East London.
Were you just in East London? When you moved here, what was the kind of situation?
Yeah, so we just lived in East London because my boyfriend always lived in East. And I feel like once you kind of get stuck in an area, you're not really moving around much, because also all of our friends live East. We lived South for like a brief period, but we both prefer East. Something definitely we noticed in the South, because it just took us a long time to see all of our friends. So I feel like you just tend to stay in the area where most of your friends live.
Yeah, that's fair enough. You say you moved here for love. Sweet. I mean, obviously that's a great thing. Have a boyfriend, be in a relationship. There are often times where you might feel like there are challenges that you've had to face. Has that happened to you? Maybe together with your boyfriend? Has it happened alone?
Definitely. So when I moved to London, it was just right before COVID hit. So definitely that was a challenge, because we had to decide where to go. Do we go, obviously stay in London or go to Germany or somewhere else in Europe, because all the borders closed. So it was a bit of a freaky time. And we did decide to stay in London. And it was definitely a challenge, because we just met, I want to say like 5 months prior. And we were just like being thrown sort of from like very early stages of dating into living together and spending every day 24/7 together, because we couldn't go out. It was lockdown, everything was closed, we couldn't hang out with any friends, so it was like very extreme. And so we didn't date very long without sort of like having our separate homes and just seeing each other. We just went straight into living together 24/7. So that was intense.
I imagine that could either make or break a relationship.
Definitely.
During the COVID period, you're confined in one space, and it could either be the worst thing, or in your case, it sort of, I guess, brought you together.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it definitely, for a lot of couples who can probably relate, you either broke up, I think, or you're like happier than ever after. It was definitely good for me to see that I can live with my boyfriend, because it was like such an extreme setting. And that's like a very good test to see if you can actually like chill out with someone 24/7 and and you still like each other. So that was really good. And we came out of it and we were like stronger than ever, I guess. But yeah, I can definitely see how lots of couples would struggle with that. And I think for us it was maybe good that we were still sort of in like a honeymoon phase, still very much loved up. Maybe now after 5 years we would murder each other. Who knows?
How does London compare to the other cities or places that you've lived in before?
I mostly always lived in German cities. Before I came to London, I studied in Denmark. So I lived in Denmark before coming to London. And I would definitely say that London is very expensive, obviously. It's like, I think, the most common thing people would say. But I also love London. It's like very diverse. People, I think, are really friendly, especially compared to Germans. People are a lot more like open-minded, I think. And you have like lots of career opportunities. I would definitely say London is one of the most exciting cities to live in, but it's also quite rough, like in terms of cost of living, and what you pay for rent is bonkers. So.
Yes, not sure when that's ever going to change, but that is the reality we live in today. It's quite a challenge. On the topic of obviously loneliness in the big city, you've lived in other cities before, as you've said. Have you felt those feelings? And if so, how have you tried to combat those?
I think for me it was definitely hard moving here, because they came during the pandemic. So it was a time where people didn't really necessarily want to talk to strangers, socialize with strangers, meet new people. We weren't allowed to meet new people. So I literally came here and I was like, I only have my boyfriend and I don't have any friends. I'm not allowed to go out and like try to socialize in working out places or restaurants, bars. I literally had like no chance to meet anyone new. I think that was definitely like a lonely time for me. And I couldn't really improve my situation because the government was like, no, gotta stay indoors. So yeah, that was a rough time. But I would say I definitely recommend if people move here to go on Bumble Friends because
Bumble friends.
it's not the dating Bumble. There's like a friends version that you can use to sort of find new friends, which I think is like a really cool way to meet new people. And in my case, I didn't have a chance to meet people any other way because I couldn't go anywhere. And yeah, I met some really cool people on there that I'm still friends with now, 4 years later. So I definitely recommend that for anyone moving here. And London is easy to meet people, but at the same time, it's also hard, especially if you're someone that works like a 9 to 5. You don't have like that much time to socialize outside of your job, and you don't want to hang out with your colleagues necessarily, like we met at work.
We did.
Very grateful for that. But you don't always get along with your colleagues like as good as we did. And definitely now in my job now, I like my colleagues. I like working with them, but I wouldn't necessarily like hang out with them in my free time. So I think for people who have like a similar work setting, it would be quite hard, I can imagine. Anything like after uni life, I think it's quite hard to make friends after that.
You work in sort of digital marketing.
I do.
But is it mostly you working remote and not with a team?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. I actually didn't think about this. So I don't really see people in person a lot. I have like a few work events, I would say like twice a month. I can go into an office, but it's only my boss, not like my team, because most of my team is based in Cape Town in South Africa. I spend a lot of time alone in my flat because I'm obviously working remotely. But I do have to say I'm quite like a loner in the sense I quite enjoy like my alone time, and I'm not super extroverted. So for me, it's okay to have like a lot of alone time. But I also sometimes I feel like if I work from home too much, like 4 or 5 days in a row, I feel a bit crazy because I haven't talked to anyone,
Yeah.
not through a screen, besides my boyfriend, obviously. And then it's really important to see your friends on the weekends and after work. I think, especially for people who work from home, who don't have like social interaction during the day. So it's very important to see your friends and socialize and stay sane.
Would you consider yourself a Londoner now?
I think so, yes.
Really?
Yes, I think so. And also, like, my boyfriend and I were like lucky enough to be able to buy a flat in London, and I think that definitely sort of cemented things for me as well. Because during that time, we sort of thought, is this a place where we could live for the next few years? Like, do we see ourselves here for the next 5 years, for example? And we were both like, yes, like we love it here, we want to stay here, which is why we bought a flat here. So I would definitely consider myself a Londoner now.
Woo!
Yeah.
Welcome, even though it's been like how many years has it been?
It's almost been 5 years now.
5 years.
Yeah.
Wow, I don't really need to welcome you anymore. How often do you go back to Germany? Where is it that you're from in Germany?
So I'm from like a smaller town near Dortmund, which not a lot of people know. But the last time I lived in Germany was in Düsseldorf. I'm sort of I have half of my family there. And I go back, I would say like twice a year. I always try to go back for Christmas because I have like my grandmother's like getting older, so I always try to go for Christmas and have like a really good quality family time. And then I also try to go in the summer as well. Where I'm from, it's like a smaller town, there's like a nice lake, a nice forest, and it's usually quite nice to get out of London in the summer because it can get really dry and you don't really have like a lot of spaces to escape to in terms of like lakes and stuff. So those are the 2 times I usually do, and that's also enough. And the thing is, I usually, when I go to Germany, I try to make it like very family focused. And I try to convince my German friends to come visit me in London, and usually it works out quite well because everyone's like excited to come to London. So that's usually how I set up my time.
In terms of people who might be looking to come to London or looking to sort of move to a big city like London, what kind of tips would you be able to share, or maybe things that you kind of did yourself that you thought, okay, if I could do this again, I'm not going to do it this way?
I moved to London and I rented a flat that I didn't see before I moved in. And you saw that flat, it wasn't the best. It didn't have any central heating and it was very moldy and stuff. So I wouldn't recommend that. I would definitely say have a look at their flat or like the housing situation before you come here. I thought it's like quite tempting to say yes to things without seeing it, especially if you're from another country and you're moving from another country, because it's a bit hard to look at flats while you don't live here because you have to fly every time. So I think people are quite tempted to say yes to like flats and properties without seeing them. But I would definitely say don't do that, especially in London, because lots of flats have like mold issues and stuff like that. So, and you don't know, like you have to check out the people you live with and your neighbors in the best case, and just like the area in itself. Because I think in London you can walk down one street, which is really nice, but then you can turn around and the next street is like kind of dodgy. So I'll definitely say check out your flats and stuff before you come here.
I remember where you used to live. It was kind of like when I lived in Brixton. You did kind of live in the thick of it in Hackney,
Yes.
near Hackney Central Station.
Yes.
And it was a choice. It was obviously great in terms of travel, that you were able to get out quite easily. But also, yeah, it was loud.
It was very loud. There was like a hospital close, and you could just hear like the sirens. And we had like a very random fox issue. So there were like foxes attacking our neighbors when they took out the trash, which is like something so like random that you wouldn't think what happened to you. But we literally woke up one night with like 5 foxes in front of our windows, just like howling, and we were like, oh my gosh. So yeah, for people who don't live in London and don't know that, but there's lots of foxes around who will attack you when you walk around with your trash.
So we're going to be signing off now. This has been Johanna and Sam Ellie.
Lovely to talk to you.
Bye.